In Western Europe, around 200,000 accused witches were burned, tortured or hanged from 1484 until 1750. The fear, the superstition and the destructive impact it had on countless lives. We will explore where accusations could have begun, how these people would have suffered, and how witchcraft evolved from terror to female empowerment. Witchcraft has written mentions that date back around 5,000 years ago, but you could potentially trace back its origins to the beginnings of human civilization, at least 10,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia. In ancient times, people believed in magic and the power of nature. Shamans were the first so-called witches who used herbs and rituals to help their communities. Across civilizations, the belief in magical powers shaped societies and brought hope to those communities. This was before religion and people in power twisted these beliefs into something demonic. What was once seen as wise and respected, it soon became feared. Witchcraft wasn't a capital offence in Britain until 1563. However, it was still seen as a false way of thinking by Pope Innocent VIII in 1484. The rise of Christianity in medieval Europe marked a turning point and witchcraft was no longer tolerated. It didn't take much to be accused of witchcraft. In difficult times, such as years when crops failed or disease was widespread, communities would often look for supernatural causes. Witches were seen as a supernatural cause. Over time, paranoia spread. Witch-hunting manuals like the Malleus Maleficarum taught people how to identify witches. Accusations could come from anyone, and once accused, few escaped alive. Old, poor, or even unfortunate crone-looking women could have been accused of witchcraft. A crone-looking woman could have been a woman with a tooth that stuck out, often referred to as a snaggletooth, if she was malnourished or even had a hairy lip. Another way they were accused of witchcraft was if they owned a cat, because witches had familiars, the cat being the most common. As fear spread across Europe, this gave opportunities to individuals to rise from the chaos driven by ambition, profit, and power. Matthew Hopkins was a witch hunter who accused many innocent people. Matthew gave himself the title of Witchfinder General and made a living charging towns to get rid of the witches. In Bury St Edmunds, he had 68 people executed. In Chelmsford, 19 were hanged in a day. Towns paid him a lot for his work. Aldeborough gave him £6, King's Lynn £15 and Stowmarket £23. This was at a time when the average worker made a few pence a day. Hopkins had plenty of methods for proving someone was a witch, but his most common was searching for a devil's mark, or any wart, mole, or even an insect bite could be a sign of being a witch. The hunt for witches wasn't just about accusations, it was about proving guilt. Across Europe, the methods used to gather evidence were often cruel and horrific. In Scotland, torture was only allowed with special permission from the Privy Council, which was only granted twice in 1591 and 1610. Nevertheless, torture was often used illegally to get confessions from the accused or to generate proof against them. Under torture, the accused might confess to performing witchcraft themselves. They might also provide names of other witches who could then be also accused and brought in for questioning. To force confessions, interrogators used psychological and physical torment. The most common technique to break an alleged witch was called waking the witch. This involved keeping the suspect awake for long periods, even days. This sleep deprivation led to confusion or desperation and made a confession of witchcraft easier to extract from an exhausted suspect. But they also searched for physical proof. It was thought that when a witch pledged herself to the devil, he marked them with a sign of their loyalty. This devil's mark was an area on a witch's body that would not respond to pain. Witchcraft investigators used sharp tools to prick the skin of suspected witches to see if the devil's mark could be found. Some people worked as professional witch prickers and would travel around Scotland and parts of northern England, hiring themselves to examine suspects. This was painful and highly distressing, and, although not originally intended as a form of torture, it may have been used as torture to bring out a confession. Even finding a birthmark or a mole on the skin could be enough to accuse a person of being a witch. The last main piece of evidence used was the swimming test. This involved the accused being tied up and thrown into a river or loch. If they sank, it was a sign that they were not a witch, and rope would be used to haul them out. Many believed that water was pure and would reject evil, so if the person floated, it was seen as evidence that they were a witch. Witchcraft was a felony in both England and its colonies, and so accused witches were hanged, but they were burnt in France, Scotland, areas of Scandinavia, and the Holy Roman Empire, encompassing parts of modern-day Germany. Only 25% of those tried across the period in England were found guilty and executed. Today, the word witches means something very different. In the modern era, witchcraft has been claimed by spiritual movements like neo-paganism, Wicca, and Dianic traditions, where the focus is on healing nature and feminine empowerment. To understand how this transformation took place, I spoke to a practitioner of neo-paganism who has a deep connection to nature.
So I came to neo-paganism probably when I was around 12 or 13. I started researching a lot of New Age spirituality, like crystals and the meanings of crystals, and then I started to get into a lot of divination, which is a tool you can use through spirituality, so that includes oracles or tarot cards, and that was really interesting to me. I think that's quite important through neo-paganism, to use a lot of physical tools for your craft. I then started to get into a lot more witchcraft and researching that and what it means to define yourself as a witch, and it really kind of resonated with me as a person. It has a lot of nature-inspired practices and incorporates a lot of meditations and just things like that. So I think that was kind of how I came to neo-paganism, which I incorporate a lot of Wicca and a lot of English influences, paganism. But yeah, I think that's probably how I came to it.
Wicca began in the 1930s. Influenced by secret societies, Aleister Crowley, and ancient pagan beliefs, it was shaped into a religious movement by Gerald Gardner. His form of neo-pagan witchcraft became known as Wicca. British historian Ronald Hutton has suggested that neo-pagan witchcraft is the only fully formed religion that originated in England. Another powerful branch of Wicca is Dianic witchcraft, which emerged in the 1970s during the rise of second-wave feminism. Dianic Wicca is centered around the great goddess and incorporates rituals and beliefs with feminist values. Many covens are also women-only spaces where the rituals are focused on female experience, empowerment, and healing. Some see it as a radical form of resistance, others a return to balance. Witchcraft has been around for centuries, from fear to freedom, from execution to expression. What was once a death sentence is now a path to community and a deep connection with nature.